The morning sun painted golden streaks across the bus window as Camila Torres pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Her reflection stared back, brown eyes filled with equal parts anxiety and determination. At 24, she carried herself with a quiet grace that made people overlook her in crowded rooms, which suited her just fine. The city sprawled before her like a concrete jungle, so different from the peaceful countryside where she grew up. Camila's fingers clutched the small leather journal her grandmother had given her before passing away. Inside were pressed flowers and handwritten notes about courage. She would need every ounce of it today. The medical appointment had been scheduled for weeks, a routine checkup that her mother insisted she attend at the best facility in the region. What should have been simple felt monumental because of one name on the appointment slip: Dr. Vincent Shaw. Even in her small town, people spoke about him, the physician who revolutionized cardiac care, the surgeon with hands so steady they seemed guided by something beyond skill. Magazines featured him alongside headlines about medical breakthroughs and charitable foundations. He was only 32, but had already built an empire of wellness centers across the country. Everything about him screamed untouchable, yet here she was, about to meet him, entering a different world. The medical center rose before her like a glass cathedral, its modern architecture reflecting clouds that drifted lazily across the sky. Camila's worn canvas shoes squeaked slightly on the polished marble floor as she entered. The lobby smelled of expensive coffee and subtle perfume, nothing like the small clinic back home with its antiseptic sting and peeling paint. Women in designer clothes sat in leather chairs, scrolling through phones encased in glittering covers. Men in tailored suits spoke quietly into wireless earpieces. Camila tugged at her simple cotton dress, suddenly aware of how out of place she appeared. Her mother had saved for months to afford this appointment, believing the best care would ease her daughter's persistent fatigue and occasional dizziness. The receptionist smiled professionally, her teeth perfectly white against crimson lipstick. Camila provided her name in barely a whisper, then retreated to a corner seat. Her heart hammered against her ribs as minutes crawled by. She tried reading a magazine, but the words blurred together into meaningless shapes. When her name finally echoed through the waiting area, Camila's legs felt like water. A nurse with kind eyes led her through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Each door they passed represented another world, another life, another story. The nurse stopped at a room marked with a silver nameplate: Dr. Vincent Shaw, Chief of Cardiology. The moment everything changed. The examination room was nothing like Camila expected. Instead of cold sterility, warm wooden accents complemented cream-colored walls. Soft lighting created an atmosphere of calm. Medical equipment sat discreetly in corners, advanced technology disguised as furniture. A window overlooked a garden where water trickled through a stone fountain. Camila's perched on the edge of the examination table, the paper crinkling beneath her. She studied a painting on the wall, an abstract piece with swirls of blue and gold that somehow felt peaceful. Her breathing slowly steadied as she focused on the artwork. The door opened with barely a sound. Vincent Shaw entered, and the room seemed to shift around his presence. He was taller than Camila imagined, with dark hair that held a hint of silver at the temples, despite his youth. His eyes were an unusual shade of gray-green, intelligent and searching. The white coat he wore seemed almost casual on him, as if he had been born wearing it. Everything about him screamed untouchable, yet here she was, about to meet him. As Vincent began the consultation, asking questions about her symptoms and medical history, Camila found her usual shyness melting away. He listened not just to her words, but to the silences between them. When she struggled to describe the exhaustion that plagued her, he waited patiently, never rushing or finishing her sentences. Something unexpected happened during that conversation. Vincent felt it too, though he would later struggle to name it. In his years of practice, he had treated thousands of patients with the same careful attention, but with Camila, every word she spoke seemed weighted with meaning beyond the medical details. The slight tremor in her voice when she mentioned her grandmother's death, the way her eyes lit up when discussing her nursing studies despite her illness, the brave attempt to smile as tears threatened to fall. He found himself leaning forward, drawn into her story in a way that transcended professional interest. When their eyes met across the small space between them, Vincent felt something crack open inside his carefully constructed world. This shy young woman with flowers pressed in a journal and dreams bigger than her circumstances had somehow reached past every defense he had built. "Let's take care of you, Camila," he said softly, using her first name without thinking. "I have a feeling you're stronger than you know." As the examination proceeded, both Vincent and Camila felt the air between them charged with something neither could explain. They were strangers bound by circumstance, yet in that moment they recognized each other in a way that defied logic. The appointment that should have lasted 30 minutes stretched to an hour, then beyond. Outside the window, the fountain continued its endless song, and inside the room, two lives began an unexpected dance toward a future neither had imagined possible.
3 days passed since that first appointment, and Vincent Shaw found himself doing something completely out of character. He stood in his office long after his staff had gone home, staring at Camila Torres's file on his computer screen. The medical details were straightforward enough: mild anemia and stress-induced fatigue, nothing that required his personal attention beyond that initial consultation. Yet he had scheduled a follow-up appointment himself, something he never did for routine cases. His business partner and closest friend, Thomas Bennett, had noticed the change immediately. Vincent had been distracted during their foundation meeting, his mind wandering even as they discussed multi-million-dollar expansions. Thomas raised an eyebrow but said nothing, though his knowing look spoke volumes. Vincent Shaw, the man who lived and breathed medicine, who prioritized his career above everything else, was thinking about a patient outside of clinical hours. The truth unsettled Vincent more than he cared to admit. Since his divorce 3 years ago, he had sworn off romantic entanglements entirely. His ex-wife, Patricia, had been from his world of wealth and status, yet their marriage had crumbled under the weight of his devotion to his work. She had called him emotionally unavailable, married to his stethoscope rather than to her. The accusation had stung because it held truth. Now, standing in his empty office with city lights glittering beyond the windows, Vincent wondered what madness had possessed him. Camila was his patient, young, from a completely different world and vulnerable. Everything about the situation screamed improper. Yet when he closed his eyes, he saw her gentle smile and remembered the way she had spoken about wanting to help people, despite her own struggles. A second meeting. Camila arrived 15 minutes early for her follow-up appointment, her hands twisting the strap of her simple handbag. She had told herself 100 times that the connection she felt during that first visit was imaginary, a product of anxiety and relief. Doctors treated people with kindness all the time. It meant nothing. But when Vincent entered the examination room, his face brightening at the sight of her, Camila knew she had been lying to herself. The energy between them crackled to life immediately, undeniable and terrifying. "You look better," Vincent observed, his professional mask firmly in place, even as his eyes betrayed deeper feelings. "The supplements are helping already." "I feel stronger," Camila admitted, surprised by her own boldness. "Thank you for taking such good care of me, Dr. Shaw." "Vincent," he said suddenly, then seemed startled by his own words. "When we're alone like this, you can call me Vincent, if that feels comfortable." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of medical equipment. Camila's heart raced, but this time it had nothing to do with her condition. She watched as Vincent struggled visibly with something, his professional composure slipping for just a moment. "I need to be honest with you," he said finally, his voice rough. "This is highly unusual for me, and I'm not sure how to navigate it properly. But I find myself thinking about you, about our conversation more than is appropriate for a doctor and patient." Walls come down. Camila's breath caught. She had imagined this moment in her small rented room, but hearing the words aloud felt surreal. Part of her wanted to run, to protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak. How could someone like Vincent Shaw, with his empire and influence, truly care about someone like her? "I shouldn't have said that," Vincent continued, misreading her silence. "I apologize if I've made you uncomfortable. Your care is my priority, and I can transfer you to an equally qualified colleague if you prefer." No, Camila said quickly, finding her voice. Please don't. I feel it too, Vincent. From that first moment, something changed. I thought I was being foolish, imagining things that weren't there. Vincent moved closer, not touching her, but near enough that she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the result of countless hours spent in surgery and study. You're not foolish. This is real, whatever this is. But I don't know what to do about it. There are ethical considerations, professional boundaries that exist for good reasons. Then maybe I shouldn't be your patient anymore, Camila suggested, her voice trembling but determined. My treatment is simple enough. Any doctor could manage it. Unless you want me to remain your patient, which would mean this conversation never happened. The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. Vincent ran his hair through his hair, a gesture so human and vulnerable that it made Camila's heart ache. Here was the man beneath the reputation, uncertain and conflicted just like anyone else. The past resurfaces. Vincent walked to the window, his back to Camila as he gathered his thoughts. My marriage ended because I couldn't let anyone truly in. I built walls so high that even someone who loved me couldn't climb them. Patricia was right to leave. I gave her everything except what mattered most, my actual presence, my emotional truth. Camila listened, dawning. You're afraid of hurting someone again, or being hurt yourself. Both, Vincent admitted, turning to face her. My entire adult life has been about control, about perfection in my work because I couldn't achieve it in my personal life. And then you walked into my office with flowers pressed in a journal and dreams in your eyes, and suddenly all that control felt meaningless. I'm not her, Camila softly, rising from the examination table. I don't expect perfection, Vincent. I grew up with very little. My father left when I was young. My mother worked 3 jobs to give me a chance at education. I learned early that love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about showing up, even when things are difficult. Vincent stared at Camila, this young woman who seemed to possess wisdom far beyond her years. You humble me, Camila, you truly do. I scare easily, Camila confessed. I overthink everything. I'm socially awkward at fancy events, which I imagine you attend frequently. I have student debt that will take years to repay. I'm not the kind of woman who usually stands beside men like you in photographs. Men like me, Vincent repeated, a sad smile crossing his face. You mean wealthy men, successful men? Camila, I have money and reputation, but I've been emotionally bankrupt for years. You have something I've been searching for without even knowing it. Authenticity, courage, a heart that hasn't been hardened by disappointment. A decision made. The air between them felt electric, charged with unspoken possibilities. Vincent reached out slowly, giving Camila every chance to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed against hers. The touch sent warmth through both of them. I want to do this right, Vincent said firmly. You're no longer my patient as of this moment. I'm referring your care to Dr. Elizabeth Morgan, an excellent physician and a good friend. She'll take wonderful care of you. And then, if you're willing, I'd like to take you to dinner. Nothing fancy, somewhere we can talk without the weight of this office around us. Camila felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy mixed with disbelief. You're serious? This is really happening? I'm terrified, Vincent admitted with a genuine laugh. I haven't asked anyone on a date in over a decade. I have no idea if I remember how to do this. But yes, I'm absolutely serious. You've awakened something in me that I thought was lost forever. Then yes, Camila whispered, her shy smile transforming into something radiant. I'd love to have dinner with you, Vincent Shaw. As they stood together in that examination room, the clinical space transformed into the birthplace of something beautiful and unexpected. Both of them understood that their journey would be complicated. Society would judge, people would question, but in that perfect moment, none of it mattered. Vincent gently squeezed her hand, a promise and a beginning all at once. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, unaware that two hearts had just decided to beat in sync against all odds and expectations.
The restaurant Vincent chose was nothing like Camilla expected. Instead of chandeliers and intimidating wine lists, he took her to a small Italian place, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood, where checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh basil created an atmosphere of warmth rather than pretension. The owner greeted Vincent like an old friend, leading them to a corner table near a window overlooking a small garden lit by string lights. "I come here when I need to remember who I am beneath everything else," Vincent explained as they settled into their seats. "The food is incredible, and nobody treats me like Dr. Shaw. I'm just Vincent, a guy who appreciates good pasta." Camilla relaxed immediately, her earlier nervousness melting away. Over plates of homemade ravioli and shared laughter, they discovered each other beyond the constraints of that first meeting. Vincent spoke about growing up as the son of a factory worker, how medical school had been financed through scholarships and endless night shifts. His success was not inherited, but earned through determination that bordered on obsession. "People see the empire now and assume I was born into privilege," he said, twirling pasta on his fork. "But I remember eating instant noodles for weeks and studying under streetlights because our apartment's electricity was shut off. My mother cleaned houses so I could afford textbooks. Everything I have, I built in her honor." Camilla reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "She must be incredibly proud of you." "She passed away 5 years ago," Vincent said, quietly, his eyes glistening. "Right before she died, she made me promise something. She said, 'Vincent, don't let your success become your prison. Find someone who sees your heart, not your achievements.' I'm ashamed to say I forgot that promise until I met you." The raw honesty in his words moved Camilla deeply. Here was the truth beneath the polished exterior, a man who had climbed mountains but lost himself along the way. She understood that feeling more than he knew. Facing the storm. Their romance blossomed quickly over the following weeks, though they tried to keep it private. Vincent would finish his rounds and meet Camilla after her nursing classes, stealing moments in parks and quiet cafes. They talked for hours about everything and nothing, discovering shared passions for old movies and morning coffee, for helping others, and finding beauty in simple things. But secrets in hospitals have short lifespans. Within a month, whispers began circulating through the medical center. Staff noticed how Dr. Shaw's demeanor had changed, how he smiled more easily and seemed lighter somehow. When someone spotted him having coffee with Camilla near the university, the gossip ignited like wildfire. The judgment came swiftly and harshly, especially from the hospital's administrative director, Margaret Cross, a woman who had built her career on maintaining institutional reputation. She called Vincent into her office on a gray Tuesday morning, her expression severe. "I've received multiple reports about your relationship with a former patient. This is highly concerning, Vincent. The optics alone could damage everything you've built here. A millionaire physician dating a nursing student he treated? The media would destroy you, and by extension, this institution." Vincent kept his composure, though anger simmered beneath his calm exterior. "Camilla was referred to another physician immediately when I recognized my feelings. All ethical protocols were followed. My personal life is exactly that, personal." "Don't be naive," Margaret countered sharply. "Your personal life becomes public when you're the face of this medical center. Board members are already expressing concerns. Some are suggesting that if you continue this relationship, it might be best for you to step down from your administrative positions." The threat hung in the air like poison. Vincent had spent years building programs that provided free care to underserved communities, had revolutionized cardiac treatment protocols, had made this center a beacon of excellence. Now they were asking him to choose between his life's work and the woman who had brought meaning back to that work. "I need time to think," Vincent said finally, his voice tight with controlled emotion. A choice between two worlds. That evening, Vincent drove to Camilla's small apartment, his mind churning with impossible decisions. When she opened the door and saw his face, her smile faded immediately. "What happened?" she asked, pulling him inside. Vincent collapsed onto her worn couch, the weight of the day crushing down on him. He explained everything, watching as understanding and then pain crossed Camila's delicate features. When he finished, silence filled the tiny space. "You should let me go," Camila said finally, her voice breaking despite her attempt to strength. "You won't be the reason you lose everything you've worked for, Vincent. Your programs help thousands of people. My feelings don't outweigh that." "Don't," Vincent said sharply, standing to face her. "Don't decide what I should sacrifice. I've spent my entire life making logical decisions, weighing outcomes, choosing the path that made the most sense. And where did that get me? A failed marriage, an empty mansion, and a heart that had forgotten how to feel anything real." Tears streamed down Camila's face. "But your work matters. Those free clinics you opened, the research that saves lives, the medical students you mentor. I'm just one person. How can I compare to all that good?" Vincent cupped her face in his hands, his own eyes wet. "You're not just one person, Camila. You're the person who reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place. Not for prestige or wealth, but to care for people, to see them as human beings with stories and dreams. I had lost that somewhere along the way. You gave it back to me." The crisis that changed everything. Their conversation was interrupted by Vincent's phone ringing urgently. He answered to hear Thomas's panicked voice, explaining that there had been a major accident on the highway, multiple casualties incoming, and they needed every available surgeon immediately. Vincent rushed to the hospital with Camila beside him, both of them pushing aside their personal crisis. The emergency room exploded into controlled chaos as ambulances arrived. Vincent moved through the trauma bay with focused intensity, his hands steady as he worked to save lives. Camila, though only a student, jumped in to help where she could, assisting nurses, comforting frightened family members, fetching supplies. Hours blurred together in a symphony of medical intervention and human compassion. At one point, Vincent looked up from treating a critical patient and saw Camila across the room, holding the hand of an elderly woman whose husband was in surgery. Camila was singing softly to her, an old hymn that calmed her woman's terror. In that moment, Vincent saw their future clearly. Not him and his world and her and hers, but both of them together in a shared world of healing and humanity. When the crisis finally subsided near dawn, Vincent found Camila sitting exhausted in a waiting area. He sat beside her, taking her hand. "I'm resigning from my administrative duties," he said quietly. "I'll remain on staff as a surgeon, but I'm stepping away from the leadership roles that make me a public figure. I'll have more time for the things that actually matter, like the free clinics and teaching, and like building a life with you." "Vincent, no!" Camila protested. "That's too much to give up." "It's not giving up," he corrected gently. "It's choosing differently. Margaret was right about one thing. I have let my success become my prison. I don't need titles or board positions to make a difference. I just need my skills, my compassion, and someone who reminds me daily why any of it matters." Love's true victory. The following weeks brought unexpected support from surprising places. The medical staff, who had witnessed Vincent and Camila working side by side during the crisis, began speaking up in their defense. Patients who had been touched by Vincent's care over the years wrote letters to the board, praising not just his skill, but his humanity. Thomas organized a petition among the physicians, stating that Vincent's personal life should remain exactly that. Even Margaret softened when she received a call from the elderly woman Camila had comforted. The elderly woman happened to be the mother of a board member, and she insisted that anyone who could show such kindness while exhausted deserved support, not judgment. Vincent did step down from some administrative duties, but on his own terms. He restructured his time to focus on direct patient care and expanding the charitable programs he had started. He discovered that with less bureaucracy consuming his days, he actually accomplished more of what he cared about. 6 months after that first appointment, Vincent and Camila stood together at a small community health fair they had organized in her old neighborhood. Children ran through booths offering free checkups and health education. Volunteers served food while local musicians played. Vincent watched Camila explaining diabetes prevention to a group of elderly residents. Her shy demeanor transformed into confident compassion when she was helping others. "She's changed you," Thomas observed, coming to stand beside his friend. "In all the years I've known you, I've never seen you this content." Vincent nodded, unable to take his eyes off Camila. "She didn't change me. She revealed who I was supposed to be all along. Someone who understands that success without love is just an impressive obituary. Someone who knows that true wealth is measured in moments like this, not in bank accounts or titles." As the sun set over the neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Camila caught Vincent's eye across the crowd. She smiled, that same gentle smile that had first captured his heart in a clinical examination.